cycling through all of that is the fact that the Vikings just fired their general manager and Sam Darnold's in the Super Bowl. And I understand you've said before that these things are not, you can't draw a bright line to connect both dots, that there's lots of other dots and things of that nature. But what exactly did the Vikings offer Sam Darnold? What did happen on that piece? Because you just mentioned the piece in Seattle that had Geno Smith accepted the raise that was being given him, that he'd have stayed, and the Seahawks would have gone into battle with him. But what about the other end? What about the other end of it, Tom?
My understanding is the Vikings offer was structured similarly to the Seahawks offer. It was a multi-year deal, but it was really a one-year commitment. If you look at Sam Darnold's deal with Seattle on paper, it's a 3-year, $100 million deal, but really they could get out after year one. And that's because the Seahawks, their contract structure, they don't do guarantees into future years in virtually every case. But it was for less money. The money was there, but more important than, the money, whatever that difference was, 10 million or whatever it was, more important was Sam Darnold could go there and be the guy. He was not going to have JJ McCarthy still looming and, being right there. And if, things went wrong for Sam Darnold, then all of a sudden it's handing off to JJ McCarthy. I think that one of the things that gets lost here, Rich, is, and this is, I'm not knocking Sam Darnold, but go back. I think people have forgotten what the last two games of Sam Darnold with the Vikings looked like. Week 17, I believe it was, when they were hoisting him on their shoulders in the locker room and pouring water on him, and Kevin O'Connell was standing back like a proud dad. A week later, week 18, they have the number one seed on the line in Detroit, and that was the worst game Sam Darnold has played over the last several years. He missed Justin Jefferson multiple times wide open in the end zone. There were just red zone failures early. He flat out was off. He played poorly in that game, which then meant instead of having the bye in the number one seed, the Vikings had to go in the end to Arizona to face the Rams, because I believe there were the wildfires at the time that relocated that game. And the entire offense didn't play well. So as you got to the end of it, it wasn't this no-brainer, like, we have to keep Sam Darnold. He's an all-pro and he's going to go to the Super Bowl next year. It was Sam Darnold, as well as he had played really well for 17 weeks. Those last two games made you go, is this the Sam Darnold that at other stops in his career, when the pressure is ratcheted up, he's come a little bit unglued? That's not happened in this postseason. Obviously, there were some things that went his way. The second game against the Rams, where there were some bounces and weird things that happened in that game. Zach Charbonnet picking up a rolling ball. I mean, that kind of got the monkey off his back, in the proverbial way. And it seems like Sam relaxed a little bit, and he's played well after that. But at that time, at the end of last season, it wasn't like a slam dunk. I mean, hindsight's 2020. Could you go back in time and franchise tag him? You could, but the tag was $40 million. He didn't even he got 33 per year on an extension. Usually you're not going to tag somebody at a number 7 million higher than what they're getting on a long-term deal, because that gives the player all the leverage. And then the baseline that they would accept would be 40 million plus another 48 next year, which is the second tag, 120%. It's 88 over 2. He wasn't getting anything close to that. And so logically speaking, if we take the emotion out of it, logically speaking, it made sense for the Vikings to say, we're only going to go up to here because we're not going to make the type of multi-year commitment that's going to keep us from giving JJ McCarthy his opportunity. I've seen other complete nonsense out there, quite frankly, Rich, this week, that they were getting ready to trade JJ McCarthy and Kwesi pulled the plug, that there was, a toxic environment between Kwesi and Kevin. None of that is true. And I can tell you that objectively speaking, as somebody who is pretty wired into the NFL and specifically wired into the workings of the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah are friends. They never had a personal issue. There were things they did not see eye to eye on. They had disagreements. Certainly the way that things played out at the quarterback position was not ideal for anyone. And everyone would love to go back in time and have the foresight to go, Sam Darnold's going to play like a top 10 quarterback and go to the Super Bowl this year. Of course you keep that guy. But really, when it came down to the firing of Kwesi, it was a lot of different things in totality. They don't have a quarterback answer. They have a salary cap issue that they have to clean up. The drafts on the whole, there were certainly hits in there. Jordan Addison was a big one. The kicker, Will Reichard, was one. There have been good picks. There have been some that didn't work out. They had to figure out what the path was forward. The Wilfs always hold these meetings a couple weeks after the season to kind of have everyone take a breath and go out there. It seems like the Wilfs asked some pointed questions. They heard very honest answers from multiple people. They decided there was not a path forward for this particular group. And so Rob Brzezinski, who's a highly respected executive, is going to run this thing through the draft. Kevin O'Connell is certainly going to be leaned upon and his staff more in the free agency process and in the draft process than they probably were in the past. They'll run a GM search after that, and we'll see where that leads. But it was not strictly, outcome-based. Sam Darnold's in the Super Bowl. Let's fire the GM who got rid of him. There were a lot of different factors. And let's also not forget, Rich, plan B in this thing was bring back Daniel Jones. They had essentially the same offer on the table to Daniel Jones. Jones decided to go to Indianapolis. They pulled the offer when they realized Jones was just using them as leverage to go to the Colts. He went there for some of the same reasons, which is there was a clearer path. You're not as threatened by Anthony Richardson as you are by a guy in J.J. McCarthy, who they had just drafted number 9 overall, and you knew one way or another was eventually going to get his shot.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.